Good morning everyone. So in today's video, let us start with electronics. So electronics related to thermionic emission, valves and electronic instruments. So thermionic emission means emission of ions when heat is supplied to cathode, that we call thermionic emissions. Now valve means a device which regulates, directs, controls the flow of fluids either by opening, closing or partially obstructing the passageway, that we call it as valve. Now next, in valves, first let us go for diode valve. So diode, it is a vacuum tube in which two electrodes are there. One we call anode, other we call cathode. Anode is maintained at positive potential, cathode at negative potential. It conducts the current in only one direction and restrict the flow in opposite direction. It is used as switch, right? So here simultaneously I am explaining the class as well as the bits. Okay, so what is diode? A device containing two electrodes. In which way it is used? It is used as switch. Now next, when we heat the cathode, okay, this is the filament. With the help of filament, when we heat the cathode, the electrons are emitted from the cathode and that electrons passes to the anode. This constitutes the current in diode. But we cannot control this flow of electrons. So for that, the another valve, triode, has came into existence, right? Now here triode means three terminals or three electrodes will be there. As usual, one is cathode and anode, another is a mesh placed between anode and cathode to control the flow of electrons. That mesh we call it as grid, right? Now this is used as amplifier. It is also used for both audio and radio signals. Okay, now if we see the difference between diode and triode, diode is two terminal device, triode three terminal device. The basic function of diode is primarily conducting current in one direction, having resistance in opposite direction. Now here triode is an electronic amplifier. It is used as which? It is amplifier vacuum tube. Okay, now next, diode consists of two electrodes, triode three electrodes. Diode consists of rectifier which alternates into direct voltage. Rectifier means which converts AC to DC. We call it as rectifier. It does not have any rectifier. It is used in turning AC to DC, that is rectifier, mixing signals, etc. It is used in amplifiers, oscillators and detectors. So if we ask any question on diode and triode, it will be useful for you if you know these differences. The next one is the drawbacks of triode is amplification factor is very low. In order to improve this amplification factor, and also there exist three inter-electrode capacitances between different electrodes. In order to reduce this, both disadvantages or drawbacks of triode, the tetrode valve has came into existence. Tetrode means it is having 4 electrodes. One as usual cathode and anode, right? The third one control grid. Now fourth one is screen grid, right? Screen grid. Now next, here in tetrode we will find negative resistance region. Negative resistance region means if we draw the plate characteristic curves, it will be in such a way. Okay. Now this one, a part of current decreases. A part of current here see decreases as plate voltage increases. It is totally a contradiction to the Ohm's law. So only we call it as negative resistance region. As plate voltage decreases, the graph will be in such a way, right? As plate voltage increases, plate current decreases. So only this call it as negative resistance region, right? Now here secondary, why this negative resistance region is formed means secondary electrons emitted by plate and collected by screen grid are responsible for it. Actually screen grid is maintained at very light positive potential. Okay. So now if screen grid is not present, what happens means all the electrons from cathode through mesh passes to the plate. The high energetic electrons which passes towards the plate and collide with the plate will emit secondary electrons. The collisions will be so powerful that secondary electrons are emitted from the plate. Now that secondary electrons, as screen grid is maintained at very slight positive potential, collected by the screen grid. Okay, they are collected instead of sending to the output circuit. That secondary electrons are collected by the screen grid. So due to this only we are getting this negative resistance region, where if we increase the plate voltage also, the plate current decreases, right? Now next, now here as I said, as energetic electrons hits the plate, secondary electrons are emitted. In order to overcome this undesirable effect of secondary electrons and to remove this negative resistance region, an additional electron known as suppressor grid is placed. Now we call it as pentode valve. So now here we will have cathode, anode, as usual control grid, screen grid and suppressor grid. Then what is the function of this suppressor grid? It reduces the plate to control grid inter-electrode capacitances between the plate and control grid. Next, it drives secondary electrons by plate back to the plate. Okay, whatever the secondary electrons are coming to the screen grid, that are only responsible for negative resistance region we said. Now this suppressor grid will make that secondary electrons again to move towards the plate. Now here suppressor grid means it does not stop any secondary emission, but it suppresses the effect of secondary emission of electrons, right? Now next, these are about valves. Now next let us go for cathode ray oscilloscope, CRO we will call. So cathode ray oscilloscope means it gives visual representation of electrical quantities such as voltage and current waveforms. We will see the voltage, the internal what is happening in form of waveforms. Now next, the parts of cathode are CRO are cathode ray tube, time based circuit, power supplies, deflection voltage amplifiers. Now cathode ray tube again consists of electron gun, means which produces electron beam, deflecting system, deflects the beam either electrically or magnetically, fluorescent screen which produces whatever the waveforms are there, visual sensation on the screen. Now again, electron gun consists of cathode. When we heat it, electrons are emitted. Control grid, it compresses electron beam into fine Bensel beam. Accelerating electrode, as usual the word itself is saying it accelerates the electrons. Anode 1 or focusing node. So focusing node we are saying no, it focuses the electron beam into fine spot. Anode 2 or accelerating. Accelerating he said means, so it further accelerates and focuses the electron beam into fine spot. The second part of CRO, time based circuit. The use of this is it generates sawtooth waveform, the original waveform of voltage or current. The next part is power supply. It is the source of DC voltage for cathode ray tube, by means of which the proper voltage are applied to the different electrodes. Next, deflection voltage amplifier. Horizontal and vertical amplifier he said, to amplify the signal, the word itself it is saying, the horizontal and vertical amplifiers are connected between CRO and its XY plates. They are used to get full scale deflection from applied voltage, amplified deflection from applied voltage. Now uses of CRO: to measure the direct or alternating voltages, to measure the direct or alternating currents, okay, to study the waveform of sounds from musical instruments also, to measure frequency, to measure phase difference between the two AC signals, to display hysteresis loop of ferromagnetic materials, to study mechanical stresses. Now to in television and radar, radio detecting and ranging. Now next, vacuum tube voltmeter, VTVM. So actually in ordinary voltmeters, it does not give the exact measured voltage. Why means it extracts some small amount of energy from the source for the movement of needle. So it cannot give the exact voltage measured. To reduce this error, these VTVMs are used. Next, multimeter. It is an electronic instrument which is used to measure voltage, current and resistance. The other name is volt ohm millimeter, VOM. Merits are small size, portable, perform several measuring functions with reasonable accuracy. Demerits are costly instrument, cannot make precise and accurate measurements. Okay. So this video is useful for SET as well as JL entrance exams. So watch my videos to receive more topics. So even the class also I will say in point wise only, so that it will be easy for you to write down the important points regarding the entrance exam. Thank you for watching my video. If you like my video, share it, subscribe it.